Now, I really can't think of a better place to serve the Lord and to live than in Alaska. We've been out of the state for about 22 years serving overseas, and to be able to come back home felt really good. I'm kind of reminded of a line from a Robert Service poem called Spell of the Yukon, where he says, "There's a land, oh, it beckons and beckons, and I want to go there, and I will." That kind of echoes how I felt the 22 years that we were out of the state of Alaska. The Aleuts have a name for Alaska called Algunalashk, which basically means the shores where the sea breaks its back. Alaska's a beautiful place, and I just can't imagine serving the Lord anywhere else. It's great to be back home. You know, I really consider it a privilege to be able to live in Alaska. It's a beautiful place, and we get to enjoy the work of the master creator with the mountains and the trees and the seas and the fishing and the hunting. Is a beautiful place to live. But you know, I also believe that along with privilege comes a responsibility, especially for those of us who are called to the Great Commission to share the gospel in the places where we've chosen to live. We as Alaska Baptists have chosen Alaska as our place to live, and we have the responsibility of taking the gospel to the darkest places of our state, to villages and places where people have yet to hear the gospel message. You know, in the early 1950s, a young school teacher from Mississippi felt God was calling her to come to Alaska. So she got on a plane, landed in Seattle, and realized there was no turning back, and came on to Alaska and began to work with some of our churches in the Anchorage area. As she began to work with the Native church in Anchorage, she began to sense a real need among Native peoples to hear the gospel message of Jesus Christ. And so she moved up to Kotzebue and began working in Bible school and working with the church in Kotzebue, and sensed that God was calling her even deeper into the remoter parts of Alaska to work and to share the hope of Jesus Christ with Native peoples. She exemplified a missionary attitude of willingness to give up the luxuries and the conveniences of living in the big city in order to go to the villages and to share with Eskimos and Native peoples who never have had the opportunity to hear the message of Jesus Christ. And that has served as a tremendous example for many of us Alaska Baptists. And she left a legacy that said we need to do everything we can to reach the darkest places of our state for Jesus Christ. Now, as the executive director, I have the opportunity to travel all across this state and see many of the works that are already started and going, and then also to seek places where we need to develop new work and to start new churches. It's a beautiful place, but I'm recognizing that the challenges are huge for a place like Alaska. I can only reach about 1/3 of the state by the road system. So that leaves 2/3 of the state, especially the North Reaches, the peninsulas, the Aleutian Islands, and even down to Southeast Alaska, where it can only be reached by boat or by bush plane. That creates some tremendous challenges for trying to get work started in areas where the gospel has never been preached. But we know that God has called us, along with the privilege of living in a beautiful place like Alaska. He's given us the responsibility of reaching these people for the sake of Jesus Christ. It might be tempting for us to say, we can't do it alone. We don't have the resources, we don't have the expertise, but God has called us and God has equipped us, and He's given us the calling, and He's placed us in Alaska for such a time as this. And it's important that we are faithful to the call that He's placed on our lives as Alaska Baptists. Each year in Alaska, we have the opportunity to promote the Valeria Sherard State Missions Offering. Alaska Baptists in the past have been very intentional about cooperating together and gathering our resources so that we can share the gospel in parts of the state that have yet to be reached. One of the privileges we have is to carry on the work that has been established by people like Valeria Sherard, Don Rollins, Harley Shields, and others, Willie Johnson, who have had a heart for the Native peoples, especially of Alaska. Many of our churches are doing a good job in the cities, but our villages and remote places of Alaska continue to be unreached with the gospel of Jesus Christ. I want to encourage all of our churches here in Alaska to focus and to bind together, to come together in a common cause, a missional cause, for sharing the hope of Jesus Christ with our state. We do that by taking an offering, and that offering helps to support new work in villages. It helps to support work in in areas where we cannot get in with the gospel, like prisons and other camps. And God is just opening up some amazing doors for us. And we know that we have the resources here in our churches. And so this is a time when we can come together and support the work of missions in our state. It's something that we have the call to do. God has blessed us and desires to use us in this way. Our state mission offering this year, our goal is $90,000. In the last few years, we've not been close to the goal. But I want to encourage each of our churches this year to not only reach our goal of $90,000, but to go beyond that goal and try to gather as much money as we can, because the need is great and the opportunities are great as well. Thank you for being a part of Valeria Sherard State Missions Offering and reaching our state for Jesus Christ.